So what we're working on today is a new Empi D series 40 single carburetor. And what we're having trouble with is this carburetor is not idling right out of the box. We have gone in and adjusted the float level, obviously attempted to adjust idle correction, idle speed, and air fuel mixture, and with no change whatsoever in those. The carburetor seems to run really good from about 2,000 RPM up. If you can get it, feather the throttle to get it up off idle, the thing runs fantastic, but it just will not idle at all. And we found that it's running very, very lean, little to no fuel at all at idle. So a little bit of further investigation, pulled the idle jets out, cleaned out the idle ports, found them all to be fine. It has the 65 idle jets in it that come from the factory, which should be more than sufficient for the little 1835 that this carburetor is going on. So continue to do a little bit more investigation, and I'm going to show you exactly what we are finding. If you zoom in down here at the carburetor, with the throttle adjusted to about 2 turns in, about where it ought to be for a normal idling motor, that's where it should be. On the bottom side, we should be able to see the progression holes. This carburetor's got 5 progression holes drilled into it for smooth idling purposes, and you'll see them. These holes will show up right down in here. You can see them inside the throttle bore there. When in the closed position, the very first one should be at about half visibility. We should be able to see that bottom hole, at least half of it anyway, and that will allow it to draw fuel into the engine for it to idle. The problem is, there's where it's closed, and you see there's no progression hole. So we can visually see where the progression holes are drilled from the outside of the carburetor by removing these inspection plugs. So I'll take one of them out real quick, and they're both identical. I've pulled both these out already to inspect to see what's going on. And after I pull the plug out, I noticed where the holes are drilled in relation to the throttle shaft, the center line of the throttle shaft, as well as in relation to the hole itself. And they're all drilled, machined, high up in the hole. The problem is that very bottom hole, the very first progression hole, is so far above the throttle plate that to actually uncover it, the throttle has to be turned very far in. Almost all the way, the throttle screw has to be screwed almost all the way in. I will actually get this thing turned to where it starts to uncover it. I'm not even there yet, and I've already got it turned in well over halfway. I'll continue to turn it in. And there, nope, not there yet. Again, you can see how far I've got it turned in now. And still no progression hole. Just getting ready to get to see it. And there it is, right there, just barely starting to show up. That's with the throttle screw turned that far in. The problem with screwing the throttle in that far in to get it, the progression hole to be uncovered, is now we've opened the throttle blade so far that it will no longer pull the fuel into the carburetor like it's supposed to, and we don't get a good idle or idle at all. The correction to this would be that these holes would be machined down. In this case, I did a little measuring, and they need to come down about 50 thousandths. A little further research told me that some people have had them up as high as 80 thousandths off. If those holes were machined down in the bore just a little bit closer to the throttle shaft, this would work fantastic. The way to fix this one would be to drill one more hole below the one that's in there on each side, one for each side of the carburetor. Drill another hole right below it. That would be a fix that would probably work. Unfortunately, this is a brand new carburetor. I really don't want to drill on a brand new carburetor. I'd like to see if the manufacturer would be able to correct their manufacturing flaw in it. But if you're having trouble with your MP40, and I've also seen this on the MP45s, the D series carburetors, if you're having trouble with them not idling, more than likely if you pull those inspection plugs out, you'll find that those holes are drilled too high, and that's usually probably going to be the problem. Always, before going anywhere further, I would make sure that your idle jets are clean, idle ports are cleaned out, blowing carburetor cleaner and air through them, and obviously making sure that your float level is correct as well. But that's what it's going to take to make this one right. Thanks.